At a rustic outdoor lumber mill, a worker in a red cap is feeding logs into a wood veneer peeling machine. The machine features large, powerful, and completely unguarded rotating drums. The operator pushes a log into the machine, but as it's pulled in, his gloved left hand follows too closely. Instantly, the rollers grab the glove and yank his entire arm into the crushing mechanism. He is trapped and in agony as his co-workers frantically rush to his aid, struggling to figure out how to stop or reverse the powerful machine before it's too late. This is a brutal example of an unguarded nip point. All rotating machinery must have physical guards that prevent any part of a worker's body from reaching the danger zone. Furthermore, using a push stick would have kept his hands at a safe distance. Inside a massive industrial plant, a worker stands on an elevated platform, positioned dangerously close to a large, rapidly spinning and completely exposed drive shaft. He appears to be performing some sort of task or inspection near the powerful mechanism. In a horrifying instant, a piece of his clothing is snagged by the shaft. With terrifying speed and force, he is violently pulled from his feet, wrapped around the shaft, and becomes part of the rotating mass. The incident is over in seconds. This shows why exposed rotating shafts are one of the most unforgiving industrial hazards. They must always be completely enclosed in a safety guard. Inside a machine shop, an operator leans deep into the work area of a large industrial milling machine to make an adjustment, placing his head and torso directly in the path of the tool head. It appears he failed to properly shut down the machine first. Suddenly, the machine cycles. The massive milling head descends with immense force, crushing him against the workpiece below. This tragic event is a direct consequence of bypassing safety protocols. Lockout-tagout procedures are mandatory for a reason. They ensure a machine is completely de-energized before any maintenance is performed. On a narrow city street, two men are walking next to a building. A third man on the sidewalk tries to warn them, but it's too late. High above, a poorly secured pallet of heavy bags, likely at a construction site, slips from its position. The entire load plummets to the ground, landing directly on top of the two pedestrians and burying them instantly. All overhead work, especially lifting operations, requires the area below to be completely cordoned off to prevent anyone from entering the drop zone. Inside a brightly lit beauty salon, clients are receiving treatments while an employee works at a shelf. The calm is shattered in an instant as a large truck, having lost control on the street outside, smashes through the glass storefront. The vehicle plows deep into the salon, sending debris flying and narrowly missing the terrified occupants who scramble for safety. This shocking incident is a reminder that even indoor spaces can be vulnerable to external traffic hazards, especially those located at street level. Inside a material processing facility, a worker manages heavy stone slabs positioned near a cutting machine. Suddenly, a large slab becomes unstable and tips forward due to a shift in weight, creating a hazardous situation for the operator in the fall zone. This incident highlights the critical need to secure heavy loads during processing and reminds us to never stand in the direct line of fire where unstable materials might fall. In a chemical processing plant, workers are inspecting a large industrial tank when an apparent valve failure causes a sudden, rapid release of pressure. The resulting release of energy disrupts the immediate area, serving as a stark reminder that pressure vessels require rigorous maintenance. Workers must always verify pressure levels and follow strict lockout procedures before approaching such equipment. An auto mechanic is working near an open service pit while a vehicle is being positioned nearby. The driver appears to lose control, possibly confusing the pedals, causing the car to accelerate suddenly into the pit area. To prevent such accidents, clear communication between drivers and ground guides is vital, and physical barriers should be used around open pits during vehicle maneuvering. A group of workers moves a tall metal scaffold structure across a paved area without noticing the overhead environment. As they push the frame, the top makes contact with high-voltage power lines, sending an electrical current down to the workers. This scenario emphasizes the importance of surveying the area for overhead hazards and maintaining a safe distance from power lines at all times. A vehicle is being loaded onto a flatbed tow truck when the securing mechanism fails, causing the car to roll rapidly backward off the ramp toward the operator. This mechanical failure illustrates why operators should never stand directly behind or below a load being winched. Regular equipment checks on cables and winches are essential to prevent failure during recovery operations. At a construction site, a crane lifts a bundle of heavy metal beams when the rigging suddenly slips. The load detaches mid-air and falls to the ground near the workers. This incident underscores that proper rigging techniques and load balancing are essential for crane safety, and establishing a clear exclusion zone underneath lifted loads is mandatory to protect personnel. In a busy commercial kitchen, staff transport a large, open container of hot liquid when one worker loses their footing. The container tips over, spilling the high-temperature contents onto the floor and the personnel. To minimize thermal risks, slip-resistant footwear is crucial, and carts with sealed lids should always be used when transporting hot substances. At a metal recycling yard, a worker introduces an ignition source near a sealed metal drum. Residual fumes inside the container ignite instantly, causing a rapid expansion of gas and a concussive blast. This serves as a critical warning never to apply heat or open flames to sealed drums without verifying they are completely empty and purged of hazardous residues. A driver prepares to unload a truck filled with heavy timber logs, but as the side restraints are released, the load shifts due to gravity. One of the heavy timbers falls outward, striking the individual standing next to the truck. When releasing cargo straps, workers must always assume the load has shifted and stand clear or use remote release mechanisms to avoid the fall path. A machinist working with a long metal bar on a rotating lathe gets their loose clothing caught on the spinning material. Although they pull away just in time, this near miss demonstrates that loose clothing, gloves, and jewelry are major hazards near rotating machinery. Wearing proper fitted work attire is a primary defense against entanglement. A large semi-truck reverses into a loading dock bay, while a worker stands in the driver's blind spot. Unable to see the ground personnel, the driver continues reversing, pinning the worker against the platform. Because loading docks are high-risk zones, drivers must strictly follow spotter signals, and pedestrians should never position themselves between a reversing vehicle and a fixed object. A forklift loads a stack of heavy industrial tires onto a truck bed, where another worker is waiting. The load is unstable and suddenly topples over, crushing the man beneath its immense weight. This is a fatal mistake of being in the line of fire. Workers must never be under a suspended or unstable load. The load should have been stacked securely, and workers should clear the area during lifting operations. A man enters a hardware store, grabs a can of flammable liquid, and immediately starts a fire in an aisle. This isn't a workplace accident, but a deliberate act of arson. For any business, this shows the importance of having multiple, clearly marked fire extinguishers, unobstructed emergency exits, and a well-rehearsed evacuation plan. At a tire shop, a mechanic works on a large truck tire lying on the ground. Without any warning, the tire explodes with incredible force, throwing the mechanic through the air. This catastrophic event is why inflating large tires requires strict safety protocols. Overpressurization or damage to the tire's structure can turn it into a bomb. All large tires must be inflated inside a reinforced safety cage, which is designed to contain the explosive energy. Workers should never lean or stand directly over a tire as it is inflated. At a loading dock, a forklift operator begins to raise the forks. At that exact moment, a scooter carrying 2 people drives directly into their path, colliding hard with the rising steel forks. This incident highlights the chaos of a poorly managed work zone. There is a severe lack of situational awareness from both the scooter driver and the forklift operator. Industrial yards require clear, designated pathways for vehicles and pedestrians, good lighting, and for all personnel to remain alert. In a poorly lit workshop, 2 men are working on the floor near what appears to be a compressed gas cylinder. Suddenly, it explodes in a massive fireball. Gas cylinders are potential bombs if mishandled. They must always be stored upright, secured from falling, and inspected for damage before use. A man operates a large industrial lathe, leaning over the rapidly spinning chuck. His loose jacket sleeve gets snagged, and he is instantly and violently pulled into the machine, spinning at a terrifying speed before a coworker hits the emergency stop. This is a classic entanglement accident. The number 1 rule when working with rotating machinery is absolutely no loose clothing, untied long hair, or jewelry. These items can be grabbed in a fraction of a second. Additionally, a chuck shield could have prevented this contact. Inside an automated factory, a worker leans over a conveyor, putting himself in the path of a robotic arm. The machine activates unexpectedly, striking the man. As colleagues rush to help, a second robot further down the line malfunctions, swinging its arm and hitting another worker. This chain reaction points to a systemic failure of the safety systems. Proper light curtains, pressure mats, or sensors should automatically shut down all robots in a zone the moment a human enters. At a gas station, an attendant is crouched down, cleaning a spill. The driver of a white SUV, who had just been refueling, gets into their vehicle and pulls away, without checking their blind spots. The car turns directly into the low-profile attendant, knocking him over and dragging him several feet before stopping. This shows the critical importance of situational awareness for both drivers and workers. Drivers must be vigilant in pedestrian-heavy areas, while ground workers should use cones to create a visible safety barrier around their immediate workspace. At a recycling facility, a man is using a long pole to push material into a large industrial shredder. He is leaning far over the machine's opening in a precarious position. Another worker approaches from behind and throws more material into the shredder's hopper. This sudden influx causes the machine to violently grab the first worker's pole, pulling him in after it. This horrific accident was caused by a complete lack of machine guarding and poor communication between workers. At a factory, a man walks through an open area below a mezzanine. Without warning, a massive, heavy roll of fabric falls from the level above, landing directly on top of him. This incident highlights the absolute importance of securing all materials stored at height, using tow boards, netting, or other barriers to prevent objects from falling. In a warehouse, a forklift operator places a crate on a truck. He then gets off the forklift, leaving it running with the forks raised and, most importantly, without setting the parking brake. As he walks in front of the machine to adjust the load, the forklift begins to roll forward on the slight incline. He is trapped and crushed between the multi-ton vehicle and the truck. This fatal accident was caused by ignoring the most fundamental rule of forklift safety. Before dismounting, always lower the forks, set the parking brake, and put the machine in neutral. Cluttered workshop. A man works near a large machine with an exposed, rapidly rotating flywheel. He's wearing a loose, untucked shirt, a critical mistake around this type of equipment. As he moves past the machine, the back of his shirt is snagged by the flywheel. He is instantly whipped around with incredible violence, spinning in the air as the machine wraps his clothing tighter and tighter around the axle. His co-workers rush in a panic to shut off the power, but the momentum continues to spin him violently. This is a textbook example of why loose clothing is forbidden around rotating machinery. It can be grabbed in an instant, leading to horrific injuries or death. All flywheels and drive shafts must be properly guarded. This onboard footage from a city bus captures the driver navigating through traffic. A passenger stands near the front, talking on the phone. Without warning, a vehicle from the oncoming lane swerves directly into the bus's path, resulting in a devastating head-on collision. The impact is catastrophic, shattering the windshield and sending the passenger flying violently forward. The aftermath shows the complete destruction of the bus's front end. This is a brutal reminder of the immense forces involved in high-speed collisions and the importance of defensive driving and constant vigilance on the road. At a construction site, several workers are standing on top of a newly constructed, unbraced masonry wall. A powerful gust of wind suddenly hits the tall, unstable structure. The wall acts like a sail, and it cannot withstand the lateral force. The entire section collapses, sending the workers plummeting several stories to the ground below amidst a cascade of bricks and scaffolding. This is a tragic failure in construction sequencing. Tall, thin walls must be properly braced against lateral forces like wind until the full structure is completed and can provide support. Two men are attempting to move a large, top-heavy commercial refrigerator or vending machine. They are using an improper method, trying to slide and pivot it by hand without proper equipment like a dolly or pallet jack. As they maneuver the appliance, its high center of gravity causes it to become unstable. It begins to tip over, and one of the men is unable to get out of the way. The incredibly heavy machine falls directly on top of him, crushing him against the floor. Moving heavy and tall objects requires careful planning and the use of appropriate mechanical aids to prevent them from tipping over. In an outdoor storage yard, a forklift repositions large, vertically stored slabs. A worker on foot adjusts materials in the immediate vicinity. As the machine operates, one of the heavy slabs becomes unstable and unexpectedly shifts. This moment underscores the importance of maintaining a safe perimeter around moving loads and ensuring materials are properly secured before and during transport. This aerial view shows a waste collection truck during a routine emptying procedure with a large dumpster. As the automated lifting arm moves the container, an individual is positioned in the narrow space between the container and the truck. The movement leads to an extremely hazardous situation. It is a critical reminder that a clear zone must be established and verified around all heavy machinery before any operation begins. Within a modern factory, an automated robotic system performs its programmed tasks inside a safety enclosure. A worker enters the active work area while the machine is still in its operational cycle. An unexpected situation occurs as the worker's position conflicts with the robot's movement path. Safety protocols, such as lockout, tag-out procedures, are designed to prevent such events by ensuring machinery is fully de-energized before human entry. In this storage facility, workers are positioned at the base of a very tall stack of heavy sacks. Without warning, the stacked goods become unstable, and the entire structure gives way. This incident highlights the inherent risks of improper stacking. Following guidelines for stack height, weight distribution, and interlocking patterns is fundamental to maintaining a safe warehouse environment. Inside a wood processing plant, a forklift transports a tall stack of unsecured panels. As the vehicle navigates a turn, the load center of gravity shifts, causing it to become severely unbalanced. The entire stack of material is displaced onto the factory floor near another workstation. Securing loads with strapping or wrapping, especially when they are tall, is a vital step in preventing material handling incidents. On an automotive factory floor, workers perform tasks near a robotic assembly line. One technician steps inside the designated safety perimeter to make an adjustment while the system is active. The large robotic arm continues its sequence, moving a vehicle frame into the space now occupied by the worker. This scenario demonstrates the critical function of safety interlocks and the rule to never enter a robot's work envelope during operation. A worker is performing maintenance on a large industrial press. While they are positioned directly in the machine's path of operation, an unexpected mechanical issue occurs. The heavy upper component of the press begins to move downward. This is a powerful illustration of why lockout-tagout procedures are essential. All potential energy sources must be completely isolated and verified before any service work begins. During nighttime road construction, a worker in a high-visibility vest walks near a large wheeled excavator. The operator begins to swing the machine's cab to reposition it. The worker is standing in the excavator's massive blind spot. As the cab rotates, the heavy counterweight swings around and pins the unsuspecting man against a stack of concrete barriers, crushing him. Swing radius accidents are a common and deadly hazard. Ground personnel must never enter the swing radius of an excavator without first getting confirmation from the operator that they have been seen. Inside a workshop, two men are performing maintenance on a large industrial machine. They are positioned directly underneath a heavy, suspended component of the apparatus. It appears the component was either improperly supported or the lifting mechanism failed. Suddenly, the entire assembly gives way and collapses downwards, crushing both workers beneath its immense weight. This is a fatal violation of a primary safety rule. Never work under a suspended load. Heavy components must be physically secured with certified blocks or safety stands before any personnel are allowed to work underneath them. In a chaotic street intersection, a pedestrian begins to cross the road. At the same time, a wheeled excavator makes a turn, its operator's view obstructed. The operator does not see the pedestrian, and the front of the heavy machine strikes her, knocking her to the ground. Continuing its turn, the operator, still unaware of the collision, drives directly over her. Heavy equipment operating in public spaces poses an immense risk. Operators must use extreme caution and have a clear line of sight, while pedestrians should never assume a driver has seen them. At a busy port, workers are loading a flatbed truck near the water's edge. A forklift operator, after placing a load, suddenly accelerates forward at high speed instead of reversing. The machine plunges off the pier, landing directly on a worker standing below and pushing him into the water. This appears to be a tragic case of pedal misapplication. In complex environments, operators must remain hyper-vigilant. Maintaining clear safety zones for pedestrians is essential to provide an escape route in case of operator error. In a factory setting, a worker operates a large rolling press. He reaches over the active machine, likely to clear a jam or adjust the material being fed into it. His arm gets caught in the powerful intake rollers, and in a horrific instant, he is pulled completely into the machine. This demonstrates the absolute necessity of proper machine guarding. All moving parts and pinch points must be covered. For any adjustments or maintenance, a complete lockout-tagout procedure must be performed to de-energize the equipment. In a mining tunnel, a worker pushes a heavy cart toward an elevator shaft. He opens the protective gate and, without verifying that the elevator car is actually there, pushes the cart into the void. He and the cart plummet down the open shaft. Safety interlocks that prevent gates from opening unless the elevator is present are critical. This tragic assumption highlights the rule to always look and confirm before you proceed. A person walks down a narrow alleyway between warehouse buildings. Behind them, a forklift carrying a load that obstructs the operator's forward view is traveling in the same direction. The operator, unable to see the pedestrian, continues forward and runs the person over. This is a primary rule of forklift safety. If your forward view is blocked by a load, you must travel in reverse. Using a horn at intersections and having designated pedestrian paths are also crucial measures to prevent this type of accident. At a lumber yard, a forklift operator attempts to lift a tall, heavy, and unstable stack of wooden panels. As the forks rise, the machine's center of gravity shifts forward, causing it to become dangerously unbalanced. The entire forklift tips forward, sending the massive load crashing down onto a nearby worker who is instantly pinned beneath the immense weight. This fatal error was caused by exceeding the forklift's rated load capacity. Operators must be trained to read and understand their vehicle's load chart and never attempt to lift a load that is too heavy or unstable. In a scrap metal recycling plant, a worker climbs into a massive baling press to clear a jam, placing himself in an extremely dangerous position. While he is inside, an excavator operator working nearby drops a load of scrap, startling the man. As he tries to get out, the press unexpectedly begins its compression cycle. The powerful hydraulic ram activates, trapping and crushing the man inside the machine before he can escape. This is a horrifying failure of lockout, tag-out procedures. Before any worker enters a machine for maintenance, all energy sources must be completely shut off and locked to prevent accidental activation. This procedure would have saved his life. In a cramped warehouse aisle, two employees stand talking, oblivious to the high-reach forklift operating behind them. The operator lifts a pallet high into the racking, but the load is unbalanced. The entire pallet of goods slides off the forks and falls onto the workers below. Pedestrians must always be aware of their surroundings and never stand under a suspended load. In a warehouse, several workers are taking a break on the floor. Nearby, a forklift operator uses straps to lift a heavy, stacked pallet. As the load is raised, it begins to swing unpredictably, and its movement leads to a loss of control. Establishing designated safe zones for breaks away from moving equipment and ensuring proper rigging techniques are used can prevent such dangerous situations. At an outdoor repair site, an individual works underneath the raised bed of a dump truck, which is supported only by its hydraulic system. Suddenly, the hydraulic pressure is lost, and the structure gives way, lowering rapidly. Never work under a load supported solely by hydraulic or pneumatic pressure. Always use certified mechanical supports or locking bars to secure the equipment physically. Two sanitation employees work at the rear of their stationary vehicle. A small truck in the adjacent lane begins to reverse without a clear view of the area directly behind it. The reversing vehicle makes contact with one of the workers. This emphasizes the need for high visibility vests and the importance for all drivers to be aware of their blind spots, especially in areas with pedestrians. In a narrow industrial driveway, a worker stands directly in the blind spot behind a large truck. As the truck starts reversing, the movement leads to a loss of balance for the person behind it. This is a near miss that reinforces a key safety principle. Always make positive visual contact with an equipment operator before entering their path of travel. At a shipping container terminal, a pedestrian walks across the active yard. Simultaneously, the operator of a large forklift begins to execute a turn. The vehicle's path intersects with the pedestrian, leading to an unexpected event. Using designated pedestrian walkways and being aware of the large blind spots around heavy machinery are crucial for safety in such environments. Inside a large industrial facility, a worker attempts to clear a material jam from a powerful roller machine while it is still operating. The moving material suddenly pulls the worker toward the rollers, creating a severe entanglement situation. This lengthy incident is a stark reminder that machinery must be completely stopped and de-energized using lockout-tagout procedures before any attempt is made to clear a jam or perform maintenance. A truck loaded with loose, heavy produce is parked on a narrow, sloped street. The structural integrity of the truck's side gate fails, causing the entire load to suddenly spill out and roll down the alley where people are walking. Regular vehicle maintenance and pre-trip inspections to confirm that all doors, gates, and latches are secure are essential for preventing cargo spills. In a metal foundry, workers are managing material in a large industrial vessel. An uncontrolled element is introduced, triggering a sudden and powerful thermal reaction. A large volume of superheated material is ejected from the container. Working with molten materials requires strict process control and specialized personal protective equipment to mitigate the risks of such unexpected events.